Good evening and thank you for joining us. Anti-racism rallies are once again taking place in Canada's second largest city. Montreal's top cop was supposed to attend, but the chief was uninvited. A group of young black activists asked that he not come because it's lost confidence in the police force. But this is a time when others are asking to repair the relationship between marginalized communities and police departments. Phil Carpenter has our top story tonight.
Protesters in downtown Montreal Sunday say the memories are hard to forget.
So at 13 years old, I had a police officer put a gun to my face and told me to move out of the way.
Stories like that are common at this rally against police brutality and racism.
No justice, no peace.
One of several across the country this weekend. Sunday's event was organized in the wake of the George Floyd killing in the U.S., but is meant to highlight racism and excessive use of force by police in this country.
It's not a black problem. It's an issue that affects all of us.
Thousands gathered to hear community leaders and others express rage and to chide politicians and police for what they see as inaction on racism.
Like this, we make them uncomfortable because they see what's going on.
One person notably absent was Montreal Police Chief Sylvain Caron. He was asked to stay away after organizers said having him there was a bad idea.
The community wasn't ready for it yet. They weren't ready because of the fact that there's a bit of an animosity.
Animosity that comes from years of difficult relationships between racialized groups and the police.
Every encounter is something based on racism because they always come up with a bogus reason to stop it.
A recent study commissioned by the city found that Black, Indigenous and Arab people in Montreal are far more likely to be stopped by police. Then there are police shootings. In 2016, violence erupted in the borough of Montreal North following a protest against the shooting death of Jean-Pierre Bonny and that of Freddie Villanueva 8 years before that. At Sunday's rally, organizers say they hope political and police leadership start listening to racialized communities. They want this march to be the last.
Aside from just coming together and marching, it's time that we create change, we force change collectively.
Phil Carpenter, Global News, Montreal.
We have developing news in Minneapolis. Tonight, some members of that city's council plan to vote to disband the police force. This is the center of the crisis that has gripped America since George Floyd was killed while in police custody. Today, tens of thousands of protesters gathered once again in cities and towns across the U.S., calling for an end to police brutality. Activists say the black community is suffering on many levels, including systemic racism and higher rates of COVID-19 and unemployment. Here's Jennifer Johnson.
The protests over George Floyd's death go on. Many demonstrators are calling on police departments to be defunded, not reformed, and for money to instead be poured into rebuilding black communities. Minneapolis protesters screaming at their mayor for not agreeing to abolish the city's police force.
If you're asking whether I'm for massive structural reform to revise a structurally racist system, the answer is yes.
But during a rally in Minneapolis, some members of the city council said they intend to disband their police force, and they believe they have the majority of votes to do it. On Monday, 2 U.S. senators will release a new bill that includes a ban on certain police practices, which millions are demanding.
This is a system that's really baked, that we all have to take responsibility for and get practices that just give greater transparency and greater accountability for those who are doing policing.
Many black Americans are frustrated at what they see as more police brutality, higher unemployment rates than whites, and COVID-19 killing a higher percentage of their population. Experts say these demonstrations will further endanger black protesters, based on new data out of Germany.
There was about a 2.5 times increase in the rate of transmission as a result of bringing people together in large gatherings. So we have some scientific basis to understand that these kinds of settings do create risk.
Despite the risks, the protests don't stop. And now more criticism over U.S. President Donald Trump's suggestion that military soldiers should have been deployed to stop the unrest.
Our military isn't trained to do this. Our military is trained for the battlefield, and this isn't a battlefield in that sense.
But American politics has become a battlefield. Along with Rice, 4 U.S. generals have now publicly criticized the president's heavy-handed comments following Floyd's death. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Former Secretary of State Colin Powell, a Republican, is adding his name to the growing list of high-profile political types critical of Donald Trump.
The one word I have to use with respect to what he's been doing for the last several years is a word I would never have used before. I never would have used with any of the 4 presidents I've worked for. He lies. He lies about things. And he gets away with it because people will not hold him accountable.
Powell says he didn't speak out before because he felt he had demonstrated his displeasure with Trump when he voted against him. Powell says he plans to vote for Democrat Joe Biden for president in November. President Trump was quick to respond. In a tweet, he called Powell a real stiff and Biden another stiff.